Over my practice career of working with thousands of folks dealing with complex chronic illness, one of the things that I have acquired over the course of time is a roster of hundreds and hundreds of those thousands of patients who are very, very sensitive to things. Sensitive patients are my heart really goes out to them because it can be so difficult to go through the treatment process being very sensitive to things, reacting to things very easily, reacting to low dosages of things, reacting to foods, things in the environment, etc. So very challenging. And it's of course infinitely more challenging to be the patient dealing with that, but it is something that provides challenge to the clinician as well. And so there's all these strategies that we have to try to figure out or that we need to develop in order to help these folks to get well. Now, thankfully, there are strategies that are very effective at helping to navigate those challenging sensitive waters. But one of the things on that note that is the topic of this video is when folks are having trouble tolerating their antimicrobial herbs. So in my practice, I use a lot of herbal tinctures when I'm going after persistent borreliosis, also known as chronic Lyme disease, Bartonella, Babesia, Epstein-Barr virus, all these different infections we go over after. And that's to say nothing of, gut antimicrobials or bladder antimicrobials or things like that, but just keeping it to systemic antimicrobials. Big fan of using tinctures, using them in combination. And sometimes, as it so happens, even when we start at a low dose and patients gradually increase their dose of these herbal formulas, sometimes they just can't tolerate them, even at the starter doses, which I usually recommend starting at about a quarter of the full dose. That's an issue for some folks. And try as they might, even dropping the dose down even more. So say if let's just say hypothetically that a quarter dose was say around like 30 drops per dosage for a patient. Even if we drop it down to half of that or drop it down to a fifth of that or a tenth of that, sometimes they're still reacting to that combination. And so in years gone by, in my earlier days, I would have said, okay, we just can't use tinctures and we need to move on. But what I've discovered over the course of time is that in some cases, in fact in many of those cases, is that the patient is actually reacting to one or more of the herbs in that combination, and that if we do what I term a tincture trial, where we basically take tiny dropper bottles of each of those herbs, start with just a small amount and gradually increase just one herb at a time, like one herb over the span of like say a 3 to 7 or 3 to 14 day period, building up that herb, then we can see which herb the patient's actually, or which herb or herbs the patient's actually reacting to. And so again, in my experience, in many of those cases, when the patient's like, oh, it's me being sensitive, my body's sensitive to everything, and this is another one of those things. In I'd say 80% of those cases, when we break the formula down into its component parts, then we see that, oh, it was actually the Houtunia that was in the formula that was causing a problem, or it was the Chinese skullcap, or it was the Cryptolepis, but the other herbs were totally fine. And so in a combination of say 4 or 5 herbs, we might find 1 or 2 of them are problematic, all the other ones are fine. And so then we might just run with a 4 herb or 3 herb combo, or say, what, there are a dozen other herbs that we could potentially use, so let's trial a couple of other ones and try to put together a formula that is well tolerated. So it's just been a little hack in my practice, trying to figure out a sensitivity hack, if you will, or a sensitive patient hack, if you will, that I found to be really useful. And quite frankly, in a lot of those cases, once we've figured out which herbs they can tolerate, they can build up to a robust therapeutic dose, maybe not the full dose I put the average patient on, but like a high enough dose, and it can be really helpful. So it's a useful trick to have up one sleeve, trying to figure out these herbal formula reactive folks who are reactive to herbal formulas is what I'm trying to say. So I hope this information was helpful. If you have any questions about this topic or anything else, just post in the comment section below. I'll do my best to answer as soon as I can, and I'll leave it there for now.